Why in the world have they now decided to release these Epstein files? There's only one logical conclusion that you can draw from this, and it's the fact that if they're offering this up on a plate to us, it's because they know that there's something coming, or maybe something bigger or scarier or equally as vile and disgusting or even ontologically shocking that's coming down the pipe. And this is one of those tricks to show you what's in this hand to keep you from focusing what's in the hidden hand. And what I think all this is getting back to, them showing us now the just straight demonic filled things that these elites and politicians were doing, and not just in one nation, but across the nation, but across the globe, all over. This man had a network that was obsessed with the occult and doing unspeakable things that history tells us has been going on for the last at least 2,000 years, and even before that, going all the way back to the flood and even before the flood. But it's not like, I think we get this idea sometimes that all stopped at the cross. But when you look throughout history, whether it's the Vikings or the Celts or the Aztecs, all of these pantheistic religions had child sacrifice to them. They had human sacrifice. And I don't think that that's a coincidence, just because when you really get down to the basics of it, they all have different names in different cultures. These so-called gods that we know are little g gods or fallen angels, demonic entities. But everywhere it's the same story. One's the creator, then you have the lesser beings, then you have ones who mixed with women, you have the offspring being superhumans, basically giants. These accounts show up all throughout the world. And it's not like that stopped at the cross. Like, when you look at the church in the book of Acts and the reverse of the Tower of Babel on the day of Pentecost, God started right there in Jerusalem building his church for this church age. And it was our duty, it was their duty, and it's still our duty today to go out, make disciples of all the nations, like Jesus said. And in a way, it was a reversing of the curse, right? Because at the Tower of Babel, when they were trying to, whether it was reach physically to the sky with the tower or whether it was more of a portal type of deal, Nimrod and his followers were attempting to put themselves above God's power to a point that they could not be destroyed or be under the authority of God. And so the only thing I can figure as to why they're allowing this stuff to happen today and showing us these evil things that our global leaders have been doing and that the super powerful and rich and elite are doing is because this all ties back into this stuff we're seeing with UFOs and aliens, and that there is a narrative being pushed, and these people who are in power now, they are taking orders from headquarters in a sense that, okay, we've been slow rolling this thing for the past 70 years, and now it's coming to a head. It's going to get uncontrollable. We're talking about things that could be economically could destroy us. Like, when some of this stuff comes out, like, it's shocking that it hasn't crashed the stock markets more than it, that it hasn't done that yet with seeing these things that were going on with these global elites. But then you add to that, a global leader, whether it's the president or the Pope or some global leader coming out and saying, hey, look, turns out y'all been being fed a lie forever, is what basically their line will be. We're not the only ones in the universe. We're not the center of God's focus. We're not the apple of God's eye. There's other creation out there in the globe. Who are we to think that we're the best and all these things? Like, that's the narrative that's going to be being pushed. And it's demonic deception to get us to go back to those same worship of those fallen entities that was going on at the Tower of Babel. Because when you look at Deuteronomy 32 verse 8, it says that after the Tower of Babel, that incident, God separated the peoples into 70 nations and gave them over to what the Bible calls the B'nai Ha-Elohim in Hebrew, which means the sons of God. So basically, these people rebelled against God. They did not want to be under him. And so when he split them apart, he gave them over to their lust and to their passions and to their false god worships. And those fallen entities all were given an area to be in control over, which is why I think we see pyramids pop up all over the globe, because those were attempts to build high places, or what's called ziggurats, to worship those gods. Or what we know, when I say gods, I'm talking about demonic fallen angels, okay? But to those ancient cultures, those were their gods, those were their heroes, and they would do child sacrifice and all kinds of things in order to appease these gods. And I think what these Epstein files are showing us is that throughout the last 2,000 years, even though the church has grown and it's become global, and a lot of this false god worship has been stuck to certain corners of the earth, there has always been a remnant, whether it's in whole cultures or even in Christian cultures, where there are ungodly people who are still trying to do these evil things to appease these demonic entities. This gets into all in with the AI stuff. Like, what does that have to do with it? When you look at these men who have created these AIs, who they're saying are autonomous, they think for themselves, they literally openly say that this is demonic, like that they have something, like Elon Musk said, we are summoning a demon. When you look at the Greek word for demon, it's daemon or demone. And if you look up what the background system for AI, what they have labeled it, it's the exact same spelling, the exact same word of daemon. That's not coincidence. There's these AI chat bots or whatever it is telling these kids to kill themselves, telling them to commit crimes, to do horrible things. And some of these people, and more than one user, have got on these certain AI systems. And I know this could just be faked to mess with Christians, but what some of them ask them is like, these AI that they're speaking to, where are you from? Like, what's your origin? And these things are literally telling them, I'm a disembodied spirit of the Nephilim. So do we take that as they're just messing with us, or is it so obvious that they're putting it in our face and we as Christians are just sitting back asleep and trying not to be woke up to the truth of the evil that we're seeing in our world today? And we laugh it off, and we grow up in the Western church where we split the spiritual from the science, and we try to allegorize things in the Bible instead of taking them literally. We say, like, there was, when you look back like the 1700s, the Renaissance period in the West, we kind of separated science from nature. And it's called a Cartesian revolution, where, we are higher thinkers now. We know that stuff in the Bible, that could not be a real account of history, so it must be allegorized or it must be faked. But guys, in other parts of the world that weren't westernized, they never had that separation of science and spirituality. And so when they see these things, when they see the demonic spirits, when they see all these crazy things going on, that's not a world-changing, a world-shattering event to the minds of those people, like it is to so many of us who grew up in the West and who were Western educated and just at best look at the Bible as a guidebook to being a good person. That's not what it is. This book is a literal account of the true things that happened throughout history, how man was constantly rebelling against God, turning and worshiping these false gods, doing all these type of rituals that never stopped. And Jesus said, like in the days of Noah, that's how it'll be in the end times. And for so long, we just thought that meant, people will be doing evil things. But the more I look into it, the more I'm looking into all these, looking for connections between all these things that are being thrown in our face. Guys, it's so obvious that the accounts in the Bible of the fallen angels, it's not sons of Seth. It's literally a group of angels that rebelled against God, came down, mated with human women, and made offspring that were not human, and attempted to fill the earth in order to destroy God's creation, to keep a Messiah from coming. Because if they could mess up the bloodline, then they could hinder the chosen one, Jesus Christ, from coming and saving the world one day. But back to the day of Pentecost, in the book of Acts, it was our job, it was the early church's job to go out and spread the truth to all these pagan cultures who had a pantheon of false gods, and to explain to them that that is deception, that that is the way to hell, and the one true God, the God of the Bible, the God of heaven, Jesus, he is the only way to be redeemed of all this evil that's going on in the world because of Adam and Eve's original sin. And the more I look at it, the more I'm taking this literally. I can't help but see how this alien stuff and the AI stuff that we're being slowly rolled into, like this past weekend, ex-President Obama comes out and says that aliens are real, and he does this weird little interview, and then he backtracks the next day and said, I was taken out of context. Well, you can go look it up. He was not joking around. Well, then later in the same week, just last night or this morning, President Trump is asked about it, and he says that Obama said classified things that he should not have said, that he's in big trouble for it, and that basically Trump may have to disclose what they know about UFOs and these mystery things in the sky in order to keep from Obama from being in big trouble. They're not doing that, I don't think, just because they're picking at each other. I think they get orders from high ups that it is time for some of this stuff to be ramped up, because there's something coming and they know they can't stop it. And I'm not saying even just like Trump or Obama completely knows everything, but I'm saying there are people who are workers of iniquity, who work for Satan, who are pulling strings in the background and setting up this one world government that will be around in the tribulation period. And I can't help but wonder if, when it talks about how Babylon will rise again, what if that's, obviously I think, me personally, that the city of Babylon, where the Tower of Babel was, is going to come back and be a thriving city, because I think that it is going to go like all these false god worships, all these false religions, they're going to go back to Babylon, where they originated from, to be judged. I think that's what God has planned for it. Because all of these false religions get their start at the Tower of Babel, and as the people go all throughout the world, the names change, but the story does not differ much from each culture with these gods. And so I think that during the tribulation period, they are going to go back, and that's going to be the center or the world hub of these pagan religions. And I can't help but wonder if these things that we're seeing with aliens and the UFOs and the demonic rituals going on with these elites is the awakening to the population that this stuff is real, that there really are entities, that there really are demons, that there really are, whether they're going to say they're extraterrestrial or or interdimensional or under the ocean. I don't know. They could flood the zone with all of it. But I can't help but wonder if, when it's talking about Babylon, are people, in order to come together and we're all one and all religions are equal, is that going to be a restart or a rebuild of those same false god worships that was happening at the Tower of Babel originally? Like, are these entities going to be put up as the high places that they once were? And what I mean by that is, it's not like the names will change. You will still have the worship of Allah. You still have Hinduism and all these things. Maybe the names like Zeus or Jupiter come back, or Quetzalcoatl, the Aztecs gods. Who knows? The nations could all decide together to say, hey, look, all of these are legit, and we're all going to come together, and we're all going to accept each other's worship. And the more I'm thinking, the more I'm looking at it, I can't help but wonder if the harlot in Revelation 17 could be the false church that's around in the tribulation, and the sign on her forehead, which says, behold, I show you a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of all harlots. What if that is the embodiment of the false church in the last 7 years that marries herself to these other world religions in order to be seen as legitimized? Oh yeah, we're the so-called church, but we're not going to look down on you for worshiping these other quote unquote gods, which we know are fallen beings, fallen angels, demons. Okay, the disembodied spirits that possess people nowadays. And I think through AI, these disembodied spirits are seeking to come back into our realm through AI. When you look at some of the things that are literally have been confirmed that were happening in these Epstein files with the blood rituals, or people trying to, like, there were emails about some of these guys forcing women to have their babies and then taking the babies and aborting them and using their stem cells to be injected back into them to help them live longer, or to help them become more like not prone to aging, to live forever, or to, if you really get into it, we're talking transhumanism, living longer, attempts not to die. And how much of that is going to be prevalent in that last 7 years, we don't know. But when you look at Daniel 2:43, and it talks about how they will mingle with the seed of men, but they shall not adhere to one another. Guys, I think that is the Nephilim of ancient days returning in the end times. And back then, they were physical beings that were offspring of angels and humans. But this time it could be that the Nephilim return through technology, through AI-based systems and robots. Or maybe you put a chip in your head, or you take a certain shot, or whatever it could be that could alter your DNA enough to where you're technically not seen as fully human. And because of doing that, you get superpowers in a sense, in a way. Like it's long been talked about that major militaries of the world have super soldiers. And that sounds crazy to us. That sounds like science fiction. But guys, this is truly something they have been working on for at least the last 100 years. I guess the point I'm really trying to make here is, I think all of this stuff is coming out to get the world to realize and to open up to the truth that those things that we were taught were just mythology. No, that's a real twisting of history. And we as Christians know that that's not the truth, that those were not the heroes of old, but that they were demons. But guys, so much of the world is going to fall for that in this broken world. When you look at all the movies they put in front of us, with the Marvel movies or the DC, they all portray these half-man, half-God beings as our heroes. And how many people, just because a government gets up in front of them and says this is real, or they're here to help us, here to help us from destroying ourselves with nuclear weapons, or hey, they're the enemy and we have to come together and create a one world government if we're going to have any chance to come out from over these underlords. Like, people who do not know the truth of Jesus Christ, that he is the one and only way to heaven, guys, they're going to fall for that hook, line, and sinker in the same exact way that they originally fell for the COVID narrative. People who don't know God are just like sheep. They get in order with the narrative and they just go around in circles and circles and circles, and they're deceived. And as crazy as that sounds, that these fallen gods or these little g gods are going to return and play a prevalent role in the end times, that sounds wild to us. It sounds like mythology if you grew up in the West. But guys, we're seeing it right in front of our eyes. And that is the only reason that I can see why they are offering up these horrible files to us to see, with more coming out. And the only reason that they're now coming clean on a 70 to 80 year cover up about these super technologies, which we call UFOs or UAPs. Some people think they're extraterrestrial. A lot more of the narrative is saying interdimensional. Some people are saying under the oceans. It doesn't matter. The point is that it's an unknown enemy, and it's going to be used to scare us in to what they want us to do as sheep. Get with the narrative if you don't want to be destroyed. And all of this that we're seeing is going to lead to a one world government. It's going to lead to a one world religion. And by one religion, I don't mean everybody being Muslim or everybody being false Christian or everybody being Hindu. I think it's going to be one world religion in the fact that everybody's religion is valid, which is how we could see a temple and a mosque and even maybe a church up on the Temple Mount in the tribulation period. It's all deception. Don't fall for it. Know what God's word says about it.